This week in fantasy movies, Stephen King dips his toes back into fantasy adaptations, and this time he might really be going for it. And how the movie rating system is keeping you away from the really gnarly stuff. The anime industry is in crisis. We'll have the details when we do the numbers. Plus, we got everything you need to know from New York Comic Con, including a whole buttload of trailers. What? Were you expecting Sam? Well, too bad. Instead, you have me, rude girl, sorceress extraordinaire.
It's okay. It's all part of the plan. Root Girl is way better at this than me. You're in very good hands.
Oh, stop it. You know I'm just a little guy. A whole ball of anxiety.
Hey, now, you don't have to be so modest.
I do when you literally wrote it that way. First up, our friends at Zombie Orpheus Entertainment are back with a new season of their cult classic web series, The Gamers.
We're playing something a little bit more legendary. Do you guys remember the story of the gamers that disappeared from their table 15 years ago?
Urban legend. That's as fake as the steam tunnel scare.
Actually, this one's all true. And you're holding their original character sheets right now.
And this one dives deep into its own lore by digging up the characters from season 1 and doing a reverse isekai on them.
Now, you're trapped in our modern world. Your goal? Find a way to open a portal back to Farther All, where you'll attempt to slay your arch nemesis, the Shadow. You are the Gamers.
Now it's up to this new band of players to get these characters back to their world of Farther All by infiltrating the local university and dispelling the mysterious Shadow Menace.
Can we just get back to the game?
You can check out new episodes every Tuesday on YouTube. We got the first episode in our playlist where you can catch all the trailers. Yeet!
It's time to let the monster out.
Our first trailer is, obviously, Arcane Season 2.
Never a dull moment.
Building on everything it broke in the first season, this new trailer points us to even higher highs, lower lows, and more bombastic action than you could pack into a pair of cities.
We'll show them. We will show them all.
On Netflix, starting November 9th. Also, from Netflix, coming March 14th, is The Electric Stage.
I'm sorry, you can't change the way things are. Watch me.
Like we talked about the other week, this is the Russo brothers' bonkers, retro-futuristic, post-apocalyptic, say that 5 times fast, movie where humans won the robot uprising, but it left everything in shambles.
Humans lost connection with each other, and I lost everyone I loved, or so I thought.
So you want to go get your brother back? I'll go with you.
But the actual story is about Millie Bobby Brown's character scouring the world for her brother. With a star-studded cast and a ton of favors called in, the Russo brothers pulled out all of the stops to make this happen. So of course we're curious to see how it turns out. Then we've got Dune Prophecy.
Now is the time to secure the throne and protect the Imperium.
Taking cues from the Denis Villeneuve movies, it leans hard into the Game of Thrones and space vibe.
If I lose control of Arrakis, the great houses would feed me to the worm.
Coming to Max, November 17th.
Consider me a true believer.
And Outlander returns with a mid-season trailer.
We've got our wish. We're going home to Scotland.
The twisty time-traveling adventure finishes up with a whole plot set in the American Revolution.
I can't leave, but you can.
But if you're like Sam over here and you only just figured out this show's cool, then you should really start at the beginning. Because this trailer, it's only for the die-hard fans.
There's no question of where we belong. It's when.
Returning to stars on November 22nd. Paramount Plus dropped a new trailer for Yellow Jackets.
Whatever it is that we communed with out there, it's still in us.
Packed with occult vibes and plenty of high school angst, just like me as a teenager.
No one should have to go through what we went through. We were just innocent kids.
Keeping the high school angst going, New York Comic Con gave us an excuse for a new Invincible teaser.
We have these things called doors that normal people use all the time. You should try them.
We also have these things called Viltrumites. You should try winning a fight against them sometime.
Okay, too soon, Cecil.
And a trailer for Watchmen Chapter 2.
You are going to try to convince me to save this world. This is where we debate Earth's destiny.
Okay, now this one's just bonkers. What do you get when you put DC superheroes in a world themed off a samurai? That's right! You get Batman Ninja versus Yakuza League, a matchup even more bonkers than Suicide Squad Isekai. Coming next year. The anime industry dropped a ton of new trailers, like for the final season of Dr. Stone, coming in January. Season 2 of I've Been Killing Slimes for 300 years and maxed out my level. Magic Maker, about 2 siblings in a fantasy world where magic doesn't exist. so they go out on an adventure to figure it out themselves. Failure Skill Nutmaster about a guy who eats all the skill fruits because now, all of a sudden, that doesn't kill you. The Unaware Atelier Master about an adventurer who's kicked out of his party for being terrible at combat. Mood. But it turns out his skill in literally everything else is top tier. And I'm a noble on the brink of ruin, so I might as well try mastering magic. Adult Swim also dropped a short scene from Lazarus.
Parkour! 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 Parkour!
And Crunchyroll dropped trailers for the beginning after the end about another epic warrior who's born into another world, I guess. And Zenshu about an epic warrior who sticks around to prevent the end of the world. Changing the vibe entirely, Universal just gave us a trailer for their Wolfman remake.
Daddy, are we gonna die?
No, it's my job to protect you.
I think my husband was infected.
And Briar Clips dropped Werewolves, which takes the concept of werewolf transformation and makes it the whole world's problem.
Hey! Bite me!
Then we got a different take on Nosferatu, where it feels more like a straight Dracula adaptation than the Robert Eggers movie. The Monkey, adapting a Stephen King short story telling you to be careful what you wish for.
Whoever controls it controls life and death. And those deaths are really f***ed up.
And Street Trash, which asks, what if Trauma movie, but with too much budget?
I have reduced the number of homeless people in the city to basically zero.
Finally, A24 dropped its trailer for The Legend of Ochi.
Your parents have offered you to this cause. Protect us! Save us!
A fantasy adventure film about a girl who took up the charge to kill a bunch of monsters, but instead she takes one of them in.
You're not like they say.
Yuri, what is this?
I'm taking him home.
So now she travels the world to find a safe place for him, but the whole world is after her because they think she's in danger.
She's been kidnapped! Let's go!
It looks like such a trip, literally. But the fun doesn't stop there because we've got so much news on New York Comic Con. Our bag of holding broke. For example, Ghostbusters: The Frozen Empire director Gil Keenan confirmed in an interview with The Direct that they definitely plan to make more Ghostbusters movies. On purpose. I guess. Or, like how Disney announced release dates for Freakier Friday and the live-action Lilo and Stitch movie, coming August 8th and May 23rd, respectively. Until Dawn comes out on April 25th, and Dan Harmon announced that Adult Swim ordered more seasons of Rick and Morty, up through season 12. But also, now that Castlevania Nocturne Season 2 is almost wrapped, series director Samuel Dietz announced that the show is going on hiatus until they find out if they're getting renewed. Godzilla Minus One is returning to AMC theaters with 13 more minutes of footage. And Philippa Boyens, one of the writers for the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movies, shared with Empire that rumors about The Hunt for Gollum getting split into 2 films are greatly exaggerated. In her interview, she said that it was a simple misunderstanding because they're working on 2 different live-action films, which both include Gandalf. So along the way, Ian McKellen got some wires crossed and might have concluded they were the same project. That's okay. Give the man some grace. He's still got a lot on his plate, even now in his 80s. Boyens also shared that Peter Jackson's team is developing more anime films beyond the War of the Rohirrim. Denis Villeneuve shared in a profile for Deadline that he got tired of his break out in the woods of Quebec, and he's already gotten back in the writing zone on Dune Messiah. As for when we'll get the movie, Deadline pressed him about when the movie might get done and showed him that he previously said 2026. This time around, he shied away from that date. Also, Sony and Amazon are going back to the drawing board on their God of War show. They had a draft they really liked from Hawk Otsby and Mark Fergus, but the companies ultimately decided to go in a different creative direction. Showrunner Rafe Judkins is still on board since it's part of his overall deal, but for now his big credit for Amazon will still be The Wheel of Time. No headhunting to see here. You know where else you won't see any headhunting? Warner Brothers, because they tried to lure Christopher Nolan back from Universal with a 7-figure check that they already kinda owed him for making Tenet, but Nolan had waived that fee when they were actually making the movie. I guess Warner Brothers thought it would be a good enough bribe to get Nolan back from Universal, but nope. Not everyone is about the money. In its article about the move, Variety gave a little context that Nolan still lives in the same modest house and drives a 20-year-old Honda. Slay, I love that for him. So he's got no use for money, a thing too many Hollywood people can't comprehend. Oh, and Alex Proyas called out Elongated Muskrat for ripping off his designs from iRobot and slapping them on Tesla's new Cybercab. Something, do not build the torment device. Over the week, fans took Universal's new Wicked poster that's a send-up to the Broadway musical and did the really weird thing by editing the new poster to look exactly like the original one, which, like... Okay, not everything has to be an exact one-to-one copy. When you get new artists into the mix, they're gonna bring new ideas. If you want the old stuff, let's go back to the old stuff. Anyway, Cynthia Erivo, who plays Elphaba in the movie, got rightly upset and blasted the fan edit on her Instagram story, calling it wildly offensive and degrading. I don't blame her. Remember, kids, these people are artists who bring their own experience and choices to the table. Disney is working on a new live-action movie about Prince Charming. Do we really need a movie about the man who swoops in to save Cinderella? Probably not. But the mouse hired the guy who did Paddington, and by God, they're gonna make it happen whether you like it or not. In cooler news, only a year after it was first published, producers Bonnie Arnold and Louise Goodsell announced they're going to adapt Owen Colfer's new book, Juniper's Christmas. Arnold has worked on Toy Story and How to Train Your Dragon, and Goodsell was executive producer on The Phantom of the Opera and Happily Never After. Adding to the Disney brain drain, longtime Disney animator Lino Del Salvo has broken free of its tethers to develop Twisted, a coming-of-age film about an Italian teenager who joins forces with a mystical beast to break the curse on her town. Also, Netflix has tapped Jason Fuchs to write a feature-length adaptation of the graphic novel Amulet. The books follow a young woman whose great-grandfather's magical amulet lets her enter a fantasy world. Oh hey, and Amazon quietly added Markiplier's horror series The Edge of Sleep to its library without telling anyone. 3 whole days early. How dare they? I've heard the drama.
Oh, you've heard this drama?
I've heard the drama.
Okay.
Because he panicked and said, you guys need to quickly go watch this because it needs to stay in the top 10, please and thank you.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I think I may have to create a blooper reel for this episode.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Patreon exclusive.
Hey! It's actually really common for Amazon to not promote new stuff on its platform. The advice in most indie film circles is that Amazon is just a place it goes. You have to bring your own marketing.
By the way, this is why you should go check out Gleahan and the Names of Industry on Amazon right now.
I heard that.
You heard nothing! Anyway, despite that, The Edge of Sleep still hit number 9 on the whole site. That slays. So severely. I love that for them. Speaking of streaming site weirdness, have you ever tried to cancel a subscription on like Netflix or Amazon and they just keep putting you through the ringer about it, making you play email tag and bounce around to a bunch of representatives on a phone tree? Well, pretty soon, that's gonna be a thing of the past. On Wednesday, the Federal Trade Commission announced its Click to Cancel initiative. The new rule makes it so sites like Disney Plus or Max or Paramount Plus have to let you cancel your subscription as easily as you signed up. This should be a huge load off of everyone's credit card statements and a blow to subscription companies' bottom line. But let's be so for real. If they have to squeeze every dollar and cent out of us in the first place, did they really earn them? I don't think so. And now's a good time to do the numbers, because despite all of that, Netflix is still projecting big gains for 2025. In its third quarter earnings call to investors, Netflix forecasts $43 billion in revenue for 2025, which would mean a massive 11% growth compared to this year. But that might be hard for Netflix since a decent chunk of its revenue comes from Japanese anime, and a new report from the UN Human Rights Council says that the anime industry is rife with abuse, which isn't necessarily news to us. Japan is infamous for underpaying its animators, but the fact that it comes from the actual United Nations adds a whole lot more weight to the issue. The UN report says that despite Japan's anime industry seeing $20 billion in profits and growing each year, animator salaries only start at $10,000 a year. In today money. Between the low pay and a bunch of other factors like the way studios hire subcontractors, it means talented veterans aren't sticking around and new people aren't coming in fast enough to replace them. And honestly, I don't blame them. It doesn't help that an article by Nikkei Business highlighted that when anime studios raise wages, the studios go bankrupt. So the imbalance is further up the chain, probably with the companies who own the copyrights and trademarks. The UN report says the anime industry needs to address these issues and reform their business practices or face the potential collapse of the whole industry. And since anime is a key export for Japan, where 20% of its profits come from the rest of the world and part of the country's entire diplomatic strategy, it's vital they fix these problems now before it's too late. As an example of how important anime is to Japan's global presence, the Japanese entertainment giant Toho just acquired G-Kids, who has been working up a storm distributing international animated movies here in North America. Nothing is going to change in how G-Kids operates, it's just, you know, sending all of its profits to Toho. They also acquired a 6% stake in Comics Wave Films, the anime studio that pretty much exists solely to make Makoto Shinkai movies. On the streaming charts, Teacup debuted at number 2, bumping From down to number 3, and Agatha All Along to number 8. And it's spooky season, which means Halloween bopped up to number 10, Smile got a bump up to number 6 with the release of its sequel, and the first 2 Terrifier movies took the number 1 and number 2 spots to coincide with Terrifier 3 screaming up a storm at the box office once again. This just in from the box office, Nightmare Before Christmas coming in at number 10, happy spooky season. Transformers 1 at number 8, Joker Folie à Deux at number 6, Beetlejuice sneaking in at number 4, Terrifier 3 sliding down to number 3, The Wild Robot staying at number 2, and Smile 2 debuting at number 1. Speaking of Terrifier 3, it broke another record last weekend by being the biggest unrated film of all time on a budget of just $2 million. Most movies go through this whole process of getting rated by the Motion Picture Association. Outside of a few fringe cases like Beyonce's concert movie last year, theaters pretty much never show unrated movies. The current rating system we have exists because movie studios didn't want government regulation, and the Hays Code of the 1930s and 40s was too restrictive. So, as a compromise, all the old Hollywood studios agreed to get their films rated through the Motion Picture Association of America, which is run by a bunch of professionally anonymous parents who think about whether a film they would watch would be suitable for their kids. It's not a perfect system, since it's all parents making these decisions. An MPA rating is more of a reflection of the morals of the people watching than of how the film will actually affect kids. This is also why movies packed to the brim with super bloody fight scenes can get away with an R rating, while a sensual drama where a woman shows any amount of pleasure or gay men going to town will get slapped with an NC-17 rating. The MPA's rating system is where you get things like G, PG, PG-13, and R ratings. These ratings actually mean something. They're not just a brand. The Hollywood marketing departments do be treating them like that. G means literally anyone can buy a ticket, even an actual small child. PG means kids need an adult with them, and PG-13 means kids need an adult with them, but to make it spicy. There's a reason why studios like PG and PG-13 movies. It translates to way more ticket sales. This is also why pretty much no movies are ever G-rated anymore. Even the kids' stuff. R means it's really not meant for kids, but kids can technically show up, but also the theater won't let in anyone under 6. Leave little Timmy at home. But if Terrifier 3 had applied with the MPA, it probably would have gotten an NC-17 rating, which is a death sentence for movies. NC-17 is a replacement for the old X rating, which never got trademarked, which is why the spicy movies call themselves triple X. It's so spicy, a single X just doesn't do it. You can see how movie studios turned these ratings into brands. Anyway, NC-17 literally means no one under the age of 17 is allowed to see the movie. Theaters are contractually bound to enforce this. NC-17 movies almost never make any money, which is why theaters never carry them and why Terrifier 3 was smarter to not get a rating at all. Normally that would be just as much of a death sentence as NC-17, but with the film industry in chaos over COVID and the strikes last year, screening an unrated film is a risk theaters are willing to take. See, the only trade-off to not getting your film rated is that the advertising rules get a lot stricter. You basically can't advertise anywhere. I didn't know Terrifier 3 was happening until recently, but that was fine for Cineverse, who owns the Terrifier franchise, because it already owns its own network of media outlets like Bloody Disgusting to spread the word for them. And since it was all in-house, it was basically free. All told, the value of Cineverse's promotional arm was like $5 to $10 million, but Cineverse spent an actual total of closer to $500,000 to market the film. And for an industry that thrives on some random left field example, bucking decades worth of trends to then follow in their footsteps, Cineverse just removed a big expense for independent films who up until now have been at the mercy of the MPA. The best part? Big studios like Disney and Warner Brothers can't get in on it because they're all signatories with the MPA. They're obligated to send all their movies for a rating. This win only helps independent cinema, which needs all the help it can get. Heck, Sam and I were already talking about what this means for the future of Battlemage films. Wait, we are?
Catch me about it on Monday.
Heard, slay, okay. If you want to know more about the wacky world of movie ratings, there's this great documentary called This Film Is Not Yet Rated that dives deep into the process. Things haven't changed since 2006 when they made it. Finally, the adaptation for Stephen King's 2022 book, Fairy Tale, is still in development. It's not often Stephen King writes a fantasy book, and it's less often that his fantasy books get produced, but this still has wind in its sails. We love that for Mr. King. Paul Greengrass is still on board to direct, but now instead of a movie from Universal, it's gonna be a 10-episode series from A24. That's gonna slap. Deadline reports that the reason for the change is that the book is just too damn long. However, counterpoint, making the adaptation longer because you won't kill your darlings is just the coward's way out. At the same time, The Running Man is sprinting along. Edgar Wright had already signed on to direct the dystopian sci-fi adaptation and co-wrote the script with Michael Bacall. Now we have casting announcements that add Lee Pace, Glenn Powell, Josh Brolin, and Katie O'Brien. This one has been in the works for ages. Stephen King wrote the book in 1982 to be set in totalitarian America in 2025, which is next year. Funny enough, that's also when the movie is set to premiere. What a crazy random happenstance. This week we've got What We Do in the Shadows coming to Hulu on Monday for its final season, Star Trek Lower Decks coming to Paramount Plus on Thursday for its final season, and Family Pack coming to Netflix on Wednesday for some werewolfy goodness. And don't forget that Film Quest starts this week. Everything we've picked here today is totally worth checking out if you're in Provo, but especially don't miss The Island Between the Tides for the H.P. Lovecraft vibes, Tim Travers and the Time Traveler's Paradox for some self-explanatory time travel shenanigans, and the Fantasy Shorts block the day before Halloween. Happy spoopy season! And that'll do it for this week in fantasy movies. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe, and you can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/rootgirl. There's probably a link in the description somewhere. Sam will be back next week to give you more fantasy movies, but I'll be back.